scholastic Buddhists, it was erroneous to affirm the reality of absolute being, atman. But it was not erroneous to affirm the reality of momentary beings, dharmas. The real, according to them, is not permanent, universal and unitary, but momentary, particular and multiple. The world is composed of an unceasing flow of particular momentary entities. Those entities are the constitutents of our experience and are the truly real events in the universe. Each dharma exists for only an instant, and yet is self-sufficient and possesses its own mark or characteristic, which defines its essential nature as different from all others. For example, consciousness is the state of being aware, and ignorance, of lack of cognition. Though distinct and separated from one another, the dharmas are linked together according to the principle of causation. They are not supported or attached to any substance or self.
The Madhyamikas countered that although it was correct for early scholastic Buddhists to repudiate the concept of atman, they suffered from the same disease as Hindu philosophers. Both had made an ontological commitment to something and became attached to it. For the Madhyamikas, the concept of dharmas is as unintelligible as that of atman. They argued that the claim, dharmas exist, is a contradictory or absurd statement. To prove this, they examined the meaning of existence, observing that, to exist, means, to be caused, to be conditioned, to be produced, or, to be dependent on something. But a dharma, as an ontological entity, is by definition a thing which has essential or own nature. The so-called own nature is something which is independent and which makes an object what it is and not something else. Therefore, to say that a dharma exists would be the same as saying that a thing which is independent of everything else is dependent on something. This is a contradiction in terms and hence makes no sense.
According to the Madhyamikas, other ontological entities can be refuted in a similar way. They are only human concepts and one should not be attached to them. However, philosophers continue to manufacture entities and realities, and project them onto the world. For the Madhyamikas, this metaphysical speculation is a disease, and the cure of the disease lies not so much in developing a new metaphysical theory as in understanding the nature and function of conceptualization and language. Nagarjuna claimed that the very language men create and use plays tricks on them and destroys their eyes of wisdom. Enlightened men should discard conceptualization so as to avoid being taken in. Emptiness, for Sanlun masters, is a medicine for curing the philosophical disease.
One of the chief sources of confusion in philosophical reasoning, Sanluan Buddhists contended, is that philosophers often fail to see the emptiness of words and names. People tend to think that words, names and concepts are attached to objects and belong to them inherently. They believe that words name or denote objects, and that sentences are combinations of such names. Meaning is the thing for which a word stands. If the word does not denote an ordinary object, it may stand for a transcendental or non-empirical entity, and if one knows something, there must be something which one knows. Men tend to look for a real object for a word, a real distinction behind a linguistic distinction, a real essence for a linguistic class, a true reality for knowledge. Thus they are led unsuspectingly into metaphysical dilemmas of their own making. Philosophers indulge in metaphysical disputes about questions such as, what is the true state of the universe? Is it being or non-being? Is being one or many? Is it permanent or impermanent? Does non-being stand for something? Does it have priority over being? Such metaphysical questions seem genuine, and the chief task of philosophy is to answer them.
According to Sanluan masters, Buddhist dharma is an awareness that metaphysicians have intellectual attachment. They are misled by human concepts and fail to see that metaphysical questions are not genuine. So-called orthodox Buddhist philosophy is, for the Sanluan, just another dogmatic view. It does not eliminate metaphysical speculation, it merely shifts position from a monistic view to a pluralistic view. So the same kind of metaphysical concerns repeatedly occur. For Nagarjuna and his Sanluan followers, one cannot solve the problem by presenting a new metaphysical theory. The complete solution lies rather in taking all metaphysical problems as conceptual confusion without explaining the initial metaphysical mistake by another metaphysical theory. In his critique of all views, Nagarjuna wrote, "I have no view." According to Sanluan masters, the refutation of erroneous views is the same as the illumination of right views. This means that a critique of a view does not aim to present another view but simply to discard the view. Nagarjuna's dialectic is not merely to limit the validity of intellect and logic, it is also to declare that reasoning and conceptual speculation are absurd. According to this idea of emptiness as no view, to look for prajna is not to look for something, but rather to know that something is empty. Wisdom is not the attainment of a theory but an absence of it. No truth is really true. In expounding on this, Nagarjuna and his Sanluan followers analyzed the nature of language and pointed out that the meaning of a term does not lie in an objective or extralinguistic entity to which that term corresponds, but lies in the context. If the context changes, the meaning of the word changes or even disappears. In the strict sense, meaning is not part of an object or thing itself, but a human projection. Those who insist that there must be some extralinguistic reality or essence to which words refer, are like a man who, perceiving the body of a woman created by magic as really existent, feels desire for her.
When men have the attached way of thinking, they make ontological commitments to truth and falsity as well as to ontological entities. According to Cheng, one should also eliminate attachments to right and wrong, true and false, or affirmation and negation. For him, so-called right and wrong, true and false are equally empty, they do not stand for any essence or self-existing thing. The right view is not a view in itself but merely an absence of views. A right view is called right because all views have been abandoned. If it were accepted as a view, it would become a wrong view which ought to be rejected. As we have seen, in Sanluan philosophy the illumination of right views and the refutation of erroneous views are not two separate things. Thus, when the Buddha denied that a dharma is existent, he did not hold another view that a dharma is non-existent. If someone were to hold that a dharma is non-existent, this view would be another extreme to be refuted. Although the Buddha sometimes used the word non-existence in his dialogues, one should know that the idea of non-existence is brought out primarily to handle the disease of the concept of existence. If that disease disappears, then useless medicine is also discarded. Cheng further said, "Originally there was nothing to affirm and there is not now anything to negate."
Sanluan masters maintain that no truth is absolutely true. Every true claim which is so for a particular observer or is made from a particular standpoint. Its truth value is not purely objective. In the strict sense, all truths are conventional, they are human projections. Our minds are often deluded by all sorts of illusions, prejudices and attachments. The truth value of the statements we make, according to the Madhyamaka, lies in whether they involve attachment or not. Those which involve attachment or make men clinging are called Hsueh-li, and those which do not involve attachment or make men non-clinging are Cheng. However, if ultimate truth is regarded as something fixed or standing for an absolute or self-existing thing, it becomes a new attachment and worldly truth. One has to re-examine it from yet another, higher standpoint and see that all truths are empty. Ultimately, to realize this empty nature of truth is prajna. True wisdom is knowing nothing substantial. In a strict sense, it has no knowing or knowledge. Prajna is an insight that the act of knowing, the knower, the object to be known, the distinction between the subject and the object, truth and falsity, are all empty. This is a wisdom without attachment, it is synonymous with